dropped, and it's showtime from downtown Winnipeg.
Morrissey the blast, moves back, scores! Shifley wires and scores!
What a stop by Hellebuck!
Kyle Connor, Jets go bang, bang, bang!
Welcome to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets.
All right, welcome to episode 148 of the Ground Control podcast, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. Just a two-man show today, myself and 680 CJOB's JV Thomas, Paul Edmonds, grinding away, getting ready for, as we record this, he's grinding away for tonight's game against the Washington Capitals. Jamie, obviously the Winnipeg Jets were in Boston last night, weren't able to pick up that victory despite the strong start, but obviously, you know, Josh Morrissey and Mark Shifley just continue to be spectacular, really, for the Winnipeg Jets this season.
Yeah.
I'll get you to start off with Morrissey. He's got an 11-game assist streak going on. That's a franchise record. He just continues to be finding ways to contribute at both ends of the ice.
Isn't it amazing how much just one phone call can make a difference in a player's life? And you know, we go back to the offseason when the head coach Rick Bowness spoke highly of him and said he felt he should be in the Norris Trophy conversation for best defense in the National Hockey League. And I'm not saying the previous regime didn't have belief in Josh Morrissey all the time, that there's another part to his game, another offensive side that we hadn't seen yet. But now just the belief and the change of the system, which allows the defense to activate. I just see Josh Morrissey looking more and more confident, if that's even possible, over game here. And, you know, he makes elite moves, always been a great skater, but just seems to have that extra gear right now, whether it's just like that confidence flowing. He has a great pairing with Dylan DeMello. He's the number one quarterback on the top power play unit, which is, ranked amongst the 15 in the NHL right now. There's just so many places you can go with how great Josh Morrissey has been. But I just think this all plays into confidence. And it seems like he has another gear every night. And it's been a grind in the month of December. We've talked about this, documented how much they've had to play. And I don't know where all this energy is coming from, but he looked great again last night in Boston as we taped this podcast. Expect him to continue to roll this along. And it looks like Dustin Butler's franchise record of 56 points by a defenseman is in peril right now. And what a great moment that will be. But for the time being, this assist streak and point streak is something to watch.
It really is. And, you know, I might have to get Rick Bowness to give me a call just ahead of the season, you know, just to see what level I can get to.
Why doesn't he phone us?
Yeah,
we
exactly.
would be better than ever right now.
We'll call each other in early September and see if that has the same impact.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of impact on the team, Mark Shifley, 10th player in the league to reach 20 goals this season, 8 straight seasons with 20 goals for Mark Shifley. You know, so much, you know, he's a guy that obviously offensively is going to be able to contribute. Defensively, he seems to be at another level this season as well. A number of great defensive plays pop into my mind, even over the last 5 games that he's been able to make. So he's really kind of become that 200-foot center that, but at the same time, he's wants more out of himself. What are you seeing from Mark Shifley, especially because his line has kind of been changing over the last little while here?
Yeah, it's kind of a revolving door. And I think where we're trying to look at all the reasons why the Jets are continuing to roll right now with all the injuries that are stacking up on the wing, and certainly missed some blue liners here and there out of the lineup. But I think that it all ties down to one thing: they're so strong up the middle, and you can name any Stanley Cup champion that has won without a strong middle of the ice portion to the roster. And I'm not saying the Winnipeg Jets are going to run onto the Stanley Cup right now, but the reason why they're hanging around top spot in the Central Division and the top part of the Western Conference are starting to finally be recognized across the National Hockey League is they're playing from the middle. Dubois, Lowry, Kevin Stenlund's been great in his short time with the Jets after a recall from the Manitoba Moose, but Mark Shifley's really been driving the bus. And the fact that he keeps saying he wants to get better and there's just another place to go, that speaks to me about a guy that isn't just satisfied. And I feel like every game that goes by when he talks to media, he's not satisfied. There's something else he can give. And man, great goal last night against Boston, and the quick hands and the fact that he's on pace for career highs and goals is something else. There's always been that goal scoring ability for Mark Shifley. And the fact that his defensive game and his 200-foot game has improved this year, I think is feeding into his offense. And I think the results are all sitting there staring us in the face as this team continues to deal with one injury after another. But Mark Scheifele, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Adam Lowry carry the play and carry this team on their backs.
And Mark Scheifele's got a couple of 30-goal seasons, but he's never hit 40. And I feel like, I don't know if this was one of those, did I say the quiet part out loud or anything, but I feel like I predicted in the preseason that I thought this would be the year that he gets there. But obviously long way to go. But as long as the Winnipeg Jets are accumulating wins, Mark Scheifele is going to be a happy player. Speaking of, being happy, the holiday season is a happy time for obviously a number of people. You being the responsible husband and father you are, I assume all of your holiday shopping is complete, right?
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do online from your hotel room. So, and I'm sure you're aware of this. Like I don't have the slightest clue what everybody, like my wife runs the show in that department. This person needs this person needs this. But so I have guidance and support in that department, but it's all taken care of. I hope yours is as well, because like 23rd. That's although I don't know about with your dad, like every Christmas Eve we were going out shopping for my mom. Like that was a family or Thomas Boy's family tradition, going with dad to the mall in Calgary to get my mom her Christmas present from all three of us. We're
squared away over here, so that's good. But for the most part, for me, it's been little trips to the grocery store to pick up like things that you either run out of in the process of making something or things that you forgot. So that's what I've got on the docket this afternoon before the Jets take on the Capitals. What do the Winnipeg Jets want for the holidays in your mind?
Oh gosh. So I think you and I both know where this is headed, like some type of health and some type of break here.
Yeah.
I marvel every day that where they sit, and the fact that the continuous message from Rick Bowness is there's no excuses, so you have to keep finding a way, and they do. And the back end of this is, I think he must be telling the players, once we get out of this, this, and you survive this, it just means great things down the stretch run. Like if they can get out of this still hanging around in first place in the Central, then I mean, look out when guys come back, when Ehlers comes back, Appleton, Wheeler, like those are three pretty critical returns to your lineup. And I mean, you got the player break coming up at the beginning part of February. If they can just get through January, which is another monster amongst itself, and with all the road games that they have, you get through that hanging around still there. I think the rest of the league is going to have to watch out, because a healthy team like this, and I'm knocking on wood because they're not out of this at all yet. But once you start getting those players back, I think that'll Ehlers walks through the dressing room and steps on the ice for morning skate, not wearing a red jersey. I think that'll be a big moment for the Jets. Same with Mason Appleton, and I can go down the list. But I think health is the only thing they can really be asking for, and just to get them through another tough month on the schedule in January.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Obviously, another holiday tradition for a number of people is the World Junior Hockey Championship. And Chris Peters, I mean, when we have any sort of question about prospects or anything, that's the guy you go to. He's the senior content creator at FloHockey. You talk to him. What stood out to you?
Like I asked him, because I love the World Juniors. I would just like to see them go other places. And the United States is a constant thorn in the side of Canada in terms of the international stage, but there'd be nice for some other locations. The World Juniors, we of course Canadians, they do a great job hosting it, but I just feel like the well is running a little dry sometimes, and I'd like to see different places. So Chris has two places that you would never think of in your mind as ideal places to go, and he has very good reasons as to why. And then he talks about the Jets' 4 prospects at the tournament and what to expect, right? And Brad Lambert's in his 3rd World Junior. What is to come out of this one? And didn't have a great second tournament, but he's a little bit older, a little bit wiser. He's played the American Hockey League. And then he talks about the favorites. And also, for the right reasons, Russia is not the World Juniors. What does that mean from the overall competition standpoint? So there's 3 things they're right there that stand out in this conversation with Chris Peters.
Shop where the players shop. Jets Gear and TrueNorthShop.com are your authentic team stores. Make sure to stock up on all your favorite Winnipeg Jets and Manitoba Moose merchandise today. Visit one of the 5 Jets Gear locations or shop online at TrueNorthShop.com.
Hi, This is Josh Morrissey, and you're listening to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets.
Chris, I think I can throw this out there safely. This tournament on the East Coast will be a much better tournament than it was in the summer. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I would think that's very safe to say. The one in the summer was a bit of a slog, actually. Just kind of getting through it. There wasn't a lot of fans in the building. It wasn't the best hockey. We had a great gold medal game, no question about it. The incredible finish that with Canada winning in overtime, in just a remarkable game between Canada and Finland. That was really the lasting memory of the tournament. That was otherwise not great. There's really no other way around it. And it felt weird the whole time. And to have it back at Christmas time, and to have it here, and to have it in Halifax and Moncton, two junior buildings again. I think that the tournament's getting back to its roots a little bit more in that way. And so should be more intimate settings, big crowds, and then also really good hockey, because there are going to be some outstanding players at this event.
I'm not going to so much throw you under the bus here, but can you think of other places in the United States would be a great home for the World Juniors outside of where it's been already?
Yeah, I would love to see them go non-traditional. I think that Tampa would be an amazing site. They've done a phenomenal job with the Frozen Four. It's going back there this year. It's always rave reviews for the events that they put on there. And then you could have the secondary site either be, Fort Myers, or you could even have it in Sunrise if you wanted to have another NHL building. But Fort Myers has an ECHL building, Orlando has an NBA building. Essentially, that probably wouldn't be an option. But that there are places to have it there, and they would do a great job. There's also I think there's going to be a push to have Vegas and Henderson co-host the tournament with the new arena that the Henderson Silver Knights play in being the secondary site, and then T-Mobile being the main site. So I think that's a strong possibility as well. I would love to see a warm weather World Juniors. I think that'd be kind of fun. But at the same time, I know that they're always concerned about ticket sales, try to have it closer to Canada. That's why they went back to Buffalo a couple of years ago. But as we've seen, if you keep going to the same well over and over again, it doesn't always have the same appeal. So I think trying to think outside the box and doing something different, that would be my preference. And I also think, other places like Detroit and Seattle that are closer to Canada would also be, firmly in the mix as well.
I'm not going to go. We've never gone political before, you and me. That's just that's the way that we've gone here with this, and especially when you join us on the podcast. Not having Russia at the tournament, political thing aside, does it hurt it?
Yes, it does. I mean, the competitive balance is different. They're not there for the right reasons. Obviously,
Absolutely,
it has so much more to do with so much bigger than hockey. But I think not having, we often talk about the big five with U.S., Canada, Russia, Sweden, and Finland. And you expect one of those, five teams to be the champion, and then, four of those five teams typically to be in the semifinals, with every once in a while you get a Czech or a Slovak upset somewhere. So when you don't have that extra team, I mean, it definitely takes a pretty significant chunk out of the tournament in terms of, competitive balance. Normally you'd have two strong groups with maybe two weaker teams tops. And now it's kind of like you might have, the U.S. is in a bracket with Latvia and Switzerland. So it's that makes it a little bit more challenging for the competitive balance of things. But, I think the other thing too is it's just disappointing not to see those players, not to have a Matvei Michkov in this tournament. If Ivan Marashchenko was healthy enough, all those, that's where it kind of gets a little bit more disappointing. But at the same time, we all know why they're not there, and it'll continue to be that way until hopefully things change in Ukraine.
Let's talk about some Jets prospects. By my count, there's four. So Rutger McGroarty, a first-round pick of the Winnipeg Jets this past June. How's he faring this season? And then what's his role with the Americans coming up on the East Coast?
Yeah, he's really thriving at Michigan. He's part of their second line typically, and he plays a ton. That second line gets a ton of run. He plays with a lot with TJ Hughes and Gavin Brindley. He's also played a lot with Dylan Duke too. So I'm trying to think of yeah, but that group works really well together. I think McGroarty is, he's a shooter, he's a scorer. He's going to be that for Team USA. I think he's probably going to be, he might, if he's not in their top 6, he's in their top 9, and will be a pretty key piece to them, having some scoring ability up front. He's the knock on him has always been his skating. It's still improving. I think that's been good, but like, he's a shooter, he's a scorer, and then he also has some real toughness to him. And some grit. So I think that's all of those things, that versatility that he brings is going to be really important for Team USA.
Well, Chaz Lucis has been with the Manitoba Moose, the American Hockey League, which, as we know, kind of helps any player in their bid to become the national and go to the National Hockey League. He's banged up right now. What's the latest with him, and how does he fit in? Should he be healthy enough to go in the tournament?
Yeah, I think they're feeling pretty positive that he'll be ready in time for the tournament. It's just he's been ramped up. I think he's basically been in camp with a non-contact jersey. I know when he left Manitoba, it was kind of a week-to-week situation in terms of his injury status. And unfortunately for Chaz, that's been the story of his young career so far, is that he's been injured a lot. And that the interesting thing is that my good pal Corey Proman reported that there will be a chance to for if there are injuries, to replace injured players, which takes a little bit of the pressure off. So I think that means that the U.S. doesn't have to worry about whether or not he's going to be able to play. They can bring him on the team. If he's not able to play, then they would replace him. But if he does play, I think he's going to be basically their number 2 center behind Logan Cooley. He's going to play a pretty significant role on the team. He'll be looked to as a goal scorer. That's what he's been. He's a very dynamic player, and so they need that dynamic skill element. USA just cut Will Smith, who unfortunately got sick, and he was the kind of guy where I was like, if Lucius can't go, maybe it'll be him instead. But I think that they're feeling fairly confident that Chaz will be ready to go in time for the tournament. They want him to be a part of the team, and he could be a pretty significant piece of this team. He's a really good young player. He's had the injury issues, but on top of that, he's just a really dynamic player.
Sweden has Fabian Wagner on their roster. I know he was one of the, not so much surprise picks, but one of those ones that you kind of like that the Jets pulled off this past, and they had a great draft. How's he going this year, and what's he looking like for Team Sweden?
Yeah, I haven't watched him a ton this year.
Yeah.
But like, I think that the Swedish team in general is pretty solid. I mean, for a 2004 born player to make it to this stage on their roster is pretty impressive. He hasn't had any points. Like when you look at a player that's in the SHL by 18, like that says a lot. He's obviously been very good at the junior level. He hasn't scored as much at the senior level, but the fact that he's been there, that he's been part of their team. I don't think he's played a whole lot. But at the same time, he's getting those opportunities. So, and I think that's when Team Sweden looks and says, hey, this is a guy that can potentially be part of our group. He's played against men. He's got versatility. He's part of the gold medal team last year at the World Under 18 Championship. So that, it gives him a bit of a leg up as well. But yeah, he'll probably play down their lineup. I don't think he's going to have like a huge opportunity to be a big producer for them, but that's kind of where they're at. They've got a really good forward group. They're very deep at that position.
Yes.
So yeah. So it'll be interesting to kind of watch where he ends up.
Always a polarizing conversation when it comes to Brad Lambert. Jets fans loved him in the preseason. We're pushing for him to make the roster, but Jets are so deep up front that was tough to say. So he along with Chaz Lucis, have had some time with the Manitoba Moose in the American Hockey League. He'll be with Finland. A lot of controversy surrounding him at the last World Juniors in the summertime. Didn't play down the stretch. I was reminded by the Jets that it's a 19-year-old tournament. Brad Lambert was 18 at the time. How is he going to fit in here for a very dynamic player, obviously, and this is a place for him to shine?
Yeah, I think Finland really needs him to be a big time player for them. It's not really a matter of if he can or not. It's he has to. It's he's got to be a key guy for them. They've got a good forward group. They have a lot of skill and some dynamic elements up front. Guys like Joakim Kamel as well, being part of that team. But for Brad Lambert, I mean, speed is the name of the game for him. He needs to be able to get behind defenses. He needs to get inside, needs to, score from the interior a little bit more. I think he'll play a pretty significant role for this team. This will be his third World Juniors too. And I thought he was better in his underage season. Last year wasn't able to make as much of an impact, ends up kind of down the lineup and then not in the lineup at times. And I think the motivation from Lambert is pretty high, considering that he wasn't part of the group in the gold medal game. So you don't have a chance to make an impact on that game that was so close. It's now your chance to basically lead this team and be a guy that they can rely on. So I think it's a great opportunity for him at this stage in his development. I think we've seen flashes of what he can be at the AHL level. It's a very difficult league for a teenager to play in. So now to get a chance to get back with his age group and take the tools that he's learned from the AHL can only help him. So I think this is a really good spot for him to be. And I think it's a good thing for the Jets to have him with this group, even though this is his third World Junior Championship. The last one didn't go so well. Let's see what a little bit of motivation does for him.
All right. The Big Four obviously play a large role in every World Juniors. Is there any team, any country right now that's kind of on the outside looking in where you think they can make an impact and surprise some of the Big Four?
I think that Czechia could be dangerous. It kind of depends on how their goaltending holds up. I like their D-core led by David Juracek. I think they've got some real talent on the back end there. They've got good forwards up front. Yuri Kulich is having a really good year in the AHL with Rochester. And so, they've got some higher end players that can make an impact in this tournament. Sometimes a lot of the tournament can be dictated by top players. Like they can make, Jan Mysak had a really good tournament last year for Czechia, and he helped propel them, to a higher standard. I think this Czechia team can do the same this year. I think they might even be, a little bit deeper, especially on the back end. It's just going to come down to, will their goaltending hold up strong enough to give them a chance? But I think like Sweden is, their D-core is a little shallow this year. They didn't get Simon Edvinsson. So that's going to be a challenge for them. Finland is they've got some talent, but there's definitely some other things there that, you just kind of wonder, you wonder about, will they have enough, to hang with the big boys? Will they get the goaltending? Real interesting thing about this tournament is that I don't think there's a single team out there, Canada, US included, that has a goalie that you can say that guy's definitely the number one goalie. That guy's, this is the guy that we can ride the whole way. And so with that, you just wonder, like, it feels like if there's not like that elite goaltending element in the tournament, how does that shift the competitive balance? And so that's the other thing is sometimes it's a guy like Devin Levi a couple of years ago for Canada coming out of nowhere to have a .960 save percentage and, basically got outdueled by Spencer Knight in the final game. But aside from that was the highest save percentage ever by a Canadian goalie at that tournament. So you never really know. Some guys rise to the occasion. Others don't. And, that's the beauty of the World Juniors.
My favorite part of every conversation, what are you doing right now and how are things going, and tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Jamie. It's always great to be with you. I'm at FloHockey right now. FloHockey.tv is where you can find all my World Junior coverage. Also, my podcast is over there, Talking Hockey Sense, which you can get wherever you get podcasts. A lot of World Junior talk from here through the end of the tournament and beyond. So really looking forward to that. But yeah, FloHockey, and then at Chris M. Peters on Twitter as well. I'll be on the scene in Moncton and Halifax, and really excited to get out there and get this tournament rolling.
Yeah, I can't wait to say welcome back to Canada, Chris. Thanks so much for doing this.
My pleasure, Jamie. Thanks for having me, bud.
Hey Jets fans, I'm Sarah Orleski. Don't forget to join me after each and every home game for the Winnipeg Jets post-game show live presented by Budweiser, where you'll get exclusive interviews, in-room access, and more. Catch us on all Winnipeg Jets platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and winnipegjets.com.
A big thank you to Chris Peters for taking the time out to talk some Jets prospects and World Juniors. Once again, he's a content creator at FloHockey. If you want to follow him and all of his work, it's always stellar. Obviously, the Winnipeg Jets schedule coming out of that holiday break is 2 home games that you're going to want to be there for, December 27th and 29th at Canada Life Center. they're going to be a rested group at that point. It's hard to tell if they'll get any sort of bodies back. That seems still a little bit early given what Rick Bowness has said, but certainly those games after the holiday break are, I always find, Jamie, I don't know if you agree with me, it's always better to be the home team in that regard, especially for the one on the 27th, because you're not really allowed to travel on the 26th. So the Jets have been the road team a few times on that 27th. It's an early morning. You get to the rink, you do the morning skate. It's a whirlwind of a day. So a little bit of an advantage, I would say, being the home team in that regard.
Yeah, especially and with Minnesota, like there's that last game with the Wild that the Jets played in St. Paul right before Thanksgiving or around Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, and that has to be in the back of the Jets' mind. That was as poor a game that they played in a long time on the road. And look what's happened since, Ron. They've won 5 of 7 on the road, and deserve a much better fate in Boston. I can't say so much. They're out of gas in Seattle, but from that game, the Jets they have improved away from home. So the fact that they get another shot at Minnesota right after the holidays will be very interesting, to say the least. But I think it's a great, that part of the schedule is good because they're at home for a little stretch. I know they go to Edmonton for a one-off, but at least it's a quick trip. So the schedule favoring the Jets in the late December, early January part, then it gets crazy again about the middle part again.
One other thing to circle on your calendar as we close out this episode of Ground Control is it's the Hockey Can't Stop Tour. It's basically 4 Canada West teams, so we're talking university hockey now, are going to welcome the Ukrainian national team in late December and early January to give them the opportunity to play and prepare for the upcoming Winter University Games, while raising money for refugees and Ukrainian communities torn apart by the war. So the universities of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Calgary are going to each play a game with all the profits from ticket sales going towards humanitarian and hockey causes in Ukraine. So the game in Winnipeg will be at Canada Life Centre January 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m. So make sure you get your tickets for that. There's information on winnipegjets.com. I believe Ticketmaster is also the place to go to get those. The Jets account has put out a bunch of links to get tickets and information, as has the Manitoba Bison's social media accounts as well. So you can go check all of those out and support a sensational cause all at the same time. So something to circle on the calendar. That's once again January 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at Canada Life Centre. It's the Manitoba Bisons against the Ukrainian national team. So make sure you get out for that one. Jamie, thank you for doing this on a game day. I know it's a busy day for both yourself and Paul Edmonds. So thank you for your time, and happy holidays.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, Mitch. Enjoy your time with your family, and we'll see you on the 27th.
Sounds good.
This has been Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. For more Jets news, videos, and more, head to winnipegjets.com.